Hey guys, if you're struggling to get out of debt and you're not sure where to quite start, I've got 7 quick tips that'll help you get out of debt quickly so that way you can move forward toward your financial future. So what is debt? Debt is basically when you owe somebody money because you didn't want to use your own money or you didn't have the necessary money to pursue a purchase or a transaction. There are really 2 kinds of debts. There's good debt and there's bad debt. Good debt is any debt that actually brings money into your pocket. For example, a business loan or a 30-year mortgage on a rental cash flowing income property, something like that. Bad debt is like your credit cards, your car payments, student loans, anything that has a high interest rate that doesn't bring money back in your pocket. It just keeps pulling the money out. And that's really the debt we're going to be discussing today. So the first tip we have for you guys today is make a decision to become debt-free. That sounds pretty simple, but the reality is it's not. It takes a lot of hard work and commitment and discipline in order to get out of debt. So until you make a decision that that's something you really want to do, you're not going to be able to do it. And to add on to that, you want to communicate this with your family, your friends, and especially your spouse. You guys all have to be on the same page for your debt-free journey, because when somebody calls you to go out for the beers or go out for that steak dinner or to the ball game, and that all costs money, you're going to need their support when you tell them, hey, listen, I can't do it. I'm really working on getting out of debt. I can't spend the extra money right now. So you want to make sure you've got everybody's support so that way you can continue on your debt freedom mission. So tip number 2, stop the luxury spending and quit adding to your debt. So maybe for a time being, you look at your accounts and you stop all the subscriptions like your Netflix, cable, maybe if you're not using your gym membership, you cut down or maybe move to a different type of membership. So that way you're saving some of those extra luxury expenses and you're not running yourself deeper and deeper into debt, and it frees up more money so that way you can add more to your debt cycle. In addition to cutting the expenses, it's also a good idea to see if you can consolidate some of those debts onto 0 interest rate credit cards, as well as maybe a personal loan with a lower interest rate that'll consolidate the debt to give you a lower payment and free up more cash flow for paying down the debt. Tip number 3, document your debt and expenses. So in this tip, you're going to list all of your expenses and your debts. And I linked a card up above with all of my budgeting tips from my previous video on budgeting that's going to give you a little bit more deep dive into how to create a budget so that way it'll help you free up more money for your debt project. So now by listing your debts, what it does is it just gives you a really good visual of what you have to work with and what you're looking to attack. When you're listing your debts out, make sure that you put the loan balance, how much you owe, the minimum payments, what you actually pay. So sometimes you pay a little bit above, like if your minimum payment's $100 but you're paying $125, you want to list that 25 extra bucks there. And also the interest rate, so you know how much interest that you're spending on those different debts. Tip number 4, create an emergency fund of at least $1,000. Before making any extra payments on your debt above the minimum payments, make sure you have $1,000 in the bank so that way you're not creating chaos when an emergency happens and you're not spending on credit cards and creating more interest and more debt. And up above is last week's video on creating an emergency fund. So take a look at that and it'll help you guys with the emergency fund process. Tip number 5, create a plan. One of the fastest ways to eliminate debt is something called debt stacking. What is debt stacking? Well, for example, let's say you have 5 different debts and you're paying $100 for a minimum payment on each one. This is oversimplified, but you guys get the idea. So when you're paying the minimum payments on each one, when you pay off that first $100, you take that $100 in the next month and apply it to the second $100 payment. So now on that payment, you're paying $200 and still paying the minimum payments on debts 3, 4, and 5. You continue this process of adding that paid off amount to the next amount until all debts are eliminated. So that's debt stacking. So there's two real methods of debt stacking: the avalanche method and the snowball method. The avalanche method, basically you're using the interest rate and going from stacking it from a high interest rate, paying that off first, all the way down to the lowest interest rates. The snowball method, what you're doing is you're starting with the lowest balance first, and then all the way down to the highest balance account you're paying last. Now, the avalanche method is mathematically the most effective way to do it. However, with this method, it may take some extra time before you start to really feel that the progress is happening, because the highest interest rate might also be one of the larger balances. So you're not paying stuff off quickly in the beginning. The snowball method, made famous by Dave Ramsey, gives you more of a sense of accomplishment because you're paying off the smallest ones first, and it keeps you motivated because you're starting to see results. And because of that, it's way more effective because you're more likely to stick with the plan than to not stick with it because you're not getting the results like in the avalanche method really quick. So that's why I recommend personally, even though it's not mathematically the best, the snowball method, because it intrinsically gives you better feelings and more motivation to keep going, and anything you feel good about, you're gonna stick with. So that's why I recommend that method. Tip number 6, you don't have to be perfect. The reality is, being in debt is very stressful. So if you're stressing yourself out because you're trying so hard to stick with the plan, don't worry about it. If you miss a month of adding the little bit of extra payments from your debt stacking program and you just pay the minimums, that's okay. Because I'd rather see you guys have less stress and just stay with the program. But if you miss 1 month, it's not a big deal. Jump back on it next month. Because if you have more good months than bad months, it's all right, you're gonna win. Now if you start to flip it and you stop altogether debt stacking and not continuing adding the money in the plan, that's not gonna work so well. But like I said, as long as you have more good months than bad months, you're gonna be on track. So you don't have to be perfect, don't beat yourself up. We're all human, it's okay to make some mistakes, all right? So tip number 7, go out and earn a little extra income. There's so many different side hustles you can do. You can deliver pizzas on the weekends, you can bartend, whatever you gotta do, pick up some extra cash so that way you can really dive down into your debt program and get debt free a little bit faster. And who knows, maybe you might start a side business that turns into your main business, that turns into a multi-million-dollar idea. You never know. So let's do a quick little recap of what we went over today. So the first tip was to make a decision. The second tip was to cut expenses. Third was to document your expenses and your debts. Fourth was create that emergency fund of at least $1,000. Number 5 was create the plan for the debt stacking. Number 6 was, listen, you don't have to be perfect. And number 7 was go out and earn a little bit of extra money to boost your plan. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys got a lot of great stuff out of today's video. Please make sure you hit the like button. It really helps out the channel and it boosts the video to other people. Also, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already, and that way you'll get more content like this. All right, thank you guys. Hope you guys have a good one and see you in the next video.